Welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the loopy chevron stitch, which is section 2 of the Marley Bird Poncho Crochet Along. This poncho is a lot of fun to make, and if you've been following along during the crochet along, you've already watched video 1 to do section 1, which was the raised chevron. If you need a direct link to that, you can find it in that image right there. Just click and you'll be able to get the information you need for the raised chevron stitch, or you will find that information in the video description below. And while you're down there, you can smash that like button, as my kids say, because I know you're going to enjoy today's video. After you finished section 1, it's time to move on to section 2, and that is this week's video. I'm so thrilled to be able to show you this stitch because it's one of my favorites. It's something done really simply just by adding some extra chains as we're creating a lovely chevron stitch, and you get this really great textured look. Now, this is a free pattern that is available on marleybird.com. Once again, the direct link to that is right down there in the video notes below. After this crochet along is complete though, the entire set of instructions will be available on redheart.com, and that link will be provided below when that time comes. Until then, it's only available on marleybird.com, and even after the crochet along is over, it will always be available on marleybird.com. Let's take a look at this stitch pattern that you're going to make today. As you take a look down here, you can see this really fun stitch pattern. Look at this. You can see that there's some really great chevrons happening in this pattern, but what is happening right here? Oh my gosh, look how cool those are. Those are actually long chains of 10 that are made as you create these rows of chevrons. And once all of those chains are done, as you're done with the panel, you braid those together in such a way in the direction that the chevron is going, and you get this really cool look. What I love most about this is because we're using Red Heart Unforgettable yarn, which is right here, you can see that it is a long color changing yarn. Whether you're using a tonal look or something that has completely different shades of color, you start to see that these long loops, which I'm calling loopies, pull a color from the previous row through the next row. And so it really muddies up the color stripe, which once again will be very flattering on a lot of figures, as this is worn as a poncho. The eye of the person looking at you as you're wearing it will not just get stuck in one place. It'll flow all along the poncho with the chevron stripes and with the loops, and it's just going to be extremely flattering. This stitch pattern is not difficult. The most difficult part is really just doing the chevron stitch, because that can be confusing sometimes, where you need to put your increases and where you need to do your decreases. What's awesome is, just like all of my other crochet alongs and my knit alongs, I've included charts. We will look at this chart as we create the sample gauge swatch for this poncho. So that way you will see where the chart can really be a direct representation of what it is you're working with on your hook. And I'll be able to clue you in on little tips and tricks that'll help you keep track so that you're in the right place on the actual chart. Now that you know what the pattern looks like as it's created into the fabric, go ahead and go download your free pattern from marleybird.com, gather your materials, and join me back here. We'll get started with this wonderful loopy chevron stitch gauge swatch. You have your pattern, and I really want to take this time to walk you through how to read this pattern. I did something similar with section 1, and many of you found it very helpful, so I'm going to do it again for section 2. So take a look down here. As you can see down here, I printed off the pattern directly from marleybird.com, so that way I'm looking at the same pattern that you're looking at home. And all of my patterns, just like I mentioned in the previous video for this crochet along, will start off with the vital information at the start of the page. So you will see right here that you are looking at the section 2 instructions of the Marley Bird Popular Poncho. You will also find a hyperlink for section 1, just in case you're confused. You're like, oh, I'm in the wrong place. I want to make sure I can find section 1. There's a link link to it right there. You will always find a big picture of what it is you're working on, a direct link to Ravelry, so that way you can go put it in your Ravelry queue and favorite it. Hopefully you've done that. And then you can turn the page. Down here at the very bottom, you'll see that there is a hyperlink information with to the details page of the crochet along. So if you want to find out more details about the yarn I used, which is Red Heart Unforgettable, or the hook, or the gauge, or the size, or the schematic, or whatever it may be, that's where you're going to look, okay? So I will turn the page, or for you, if you're looking at the computer, you will scroll down, and I can see up here at the top that I did go ahead and include the size of each of the rectangle pieces and the finished size of the poncho. The reason I did that is after the last video and the last pattern was released, a lot of people were missing the fact that they could go back to the details page to find the size. So I wanted to make sure it was included in each section of the pattern as well. So that's why I included it there. Once you drop down from that information, you'll see the pattern, and it says the pattern, and it says below you will find the instructions for section 2. So it reminds you again that you're looking at instructions for section 2. I let you know how to read the instructions, meaning when you're looking at a small or medium, it will be outside of the parentheses. When you're looking for the large to the 2 extra large, you will look at the numbers inside the parentheses. The gauge that you are trying to obtain for the loopy chevron stitch is 24 stitches, which equals 2 repeats, and they will equal 6 inches in the loopy chevron pattern. Meaning as we're doing our gauge swatch today, we want our gauge swatch to measure 6 inches, okay? 6 inches. You'll see that there's another image of what it is you're making, because I thought it was helpful to kind of see what was happening so that you can go back and see what's going on. And I turn the page. As always, there is a list of abbreviations here at the very top of this page I'm looking at. And then you'll see where it says special stitches. And these are the stitches that we will be using in this particular stitch pattern. They're not incredibly difficult stitches, and they're stitches you've probably seen before, but I wanted to make sure for those of you who aren't really sure what they are, there's a place for you to know. So there's the single crochet 2 together, a double crochet 2 together, and then the tacking down single crochets. That's actually how you will make sure that the loops are all braided together and then joined with a final row of work, okay? So that's the tacking down. So you'll do that at the very finishing part. You drop down some more, you can see where it says, let's begin, loopy chevron panel. The foundation for this panel is a 12 stitch repeat plus 1. So your chain amount will be 12 stitches plus 1. So those of you out there who are following along with the crochet along, but you want to use these stitches in other projects, whether it's a blanket or a hat or what, I don't even know, whatever you're going to do it for, that information is there for you. So that way you can use this stitch pattern and make it useful for whatever you're going to use it for. You jump down further, you can see here's the number outside of the parenthesis, which is our small medium size, and the number inside the parenthesis, which is our large to 2 extra large. So you would chain that amount and then continue on with the written instructions. You'll notice here that the row 2 is colored purple, and you'll notice that inside that row 2, as you follow along, you come to a part where it says chain 10. And that is also in purple. The reason I made that a different color is to hopefully help you visualize when it is you will be doing your chain 2s on that particular row. Whenever you see the purple chain 2, you will be doing or not chain 2, the purple chain 10s, you will be doing your chain 10s on a double crochet row. The next row, row 3, you'll see that it's orange, and when you come across the chain 10 on row 3, it's in orange also. That's also a visual cue for you to know that you will be doing your chain 10s on a single crochet row. If you followed along with me on any of my videos or previous crochet alongs or knit alongs or any of my patterns, I like to do little things that will help you have visual cues to help you remember where you are in pattern, because I know that I tend to forget sometimes, and having colors like this really help out. And I have coincided the colors here with the chart that we're going to get to in here just a second. So I will turn the page here. And you'll see that even right here at the top where it says that we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3, I even colored those so that way you can remember you're going from your double crochet row to your single crochet row, and then you'll know where the placement of your chain 10s will be. As you follow along, of course, there's more instruction and you can read that as you want. But I do want to point out right here where it says designer note. Make sure that you do come back and watch this video so that you can get this designer note and really understand what it is I'm explaining here. But just to sum it up really quickly here at the start of the video, I'm just trying to say that if we want to tack down our stitches on one end and not tack them down on the other end, but have them overlap at the shoulder point, at the shoulder join, so right here, as we join the two rectangles, maybe we put a button detail there, and that's actually how we tack down those loops. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, you'll be able to do that so that you are able to do that and not have to rip anything out. I just said, hey, if you decide you want to add buttons, you don't need to do the actually tacking down on the next row, just do the single crochets as they're indicated in the stitch pattern. Okay, so follow along. You can see exactly the written instructions right there. And then we get to the lovely chart. I had such a wonderful compliment recently on the Crochet Along group. That's right, there is a Facebook Crochet Along group that I use for all of the Marley Bird Crochet Along. So once you join that group, you are part of the Crochet Alongs for as long as you want to be. But a lovely woman said, hey Marley, is there going to be a chart available for all of the stitch patterns when I do this crochet along? And I said, absolutely. I think it's very important to have the charts, as long as I can have them made up, to accompany the written instructions, because I know that so many of us out there learn so differently. And so I want to make sure those of us who really enjoy the written instructions have those of us who enjoy the charts have those, and those of us who really want to learn one or the other or better understand one or the other, we now have two tools to really go back and check our work. And I think that that is something really important. And she happened to mention that she really appreciated that and wanted to say thank you and said it was worth all the money that I spend to have the charts made. So I want to tell you, I completely agree. So speaking of charts, you'll see here, just as I did in section 1, I have a chart that is bare bones as is. Boom, there's a chart. You'll notice that the rows are slightly colored different. One is gray and one is black to help you know that there is a difference in the two rows. But other than that, it's pretty plain Jane information. You could go along and you absolutely could make the loopy chevron stitch using this chart. But because I like to have a little color cues, you guys all know this, down here in this chart, and this is the chart we will use in today's video, I added a highlight over the chain 10 symbol to let me know, hey, when I get to this purple chain 10, I'm only going to do that on my double crochet row, my row 2, which, if you remember, when I did my row 2s back here in the written, it's also purple. So that's one way that I can go back and forth between the two. And then on my row 3s, I highlighted the 10s in orange, which are also in the written instructions as well. You'll notice that on row 2, the chain 10s are going to be at the peak of the chevron. And on my row 3, or all my odd rows, my chain 10s will be at the valley of the chevron. So in order to keep my place in the actual stitch chart, I've highlighted those 10s. And you'll notice over here in the symbol key, I just put kind of like a bracket pointing to the chain 10 symbol. And I mentioned that when you see the pink chain 10, you're on a double crochet row. When you see the orange chain 10, that's for the single crochet row. Hopefully that makes sense to all of you. It makes sense to me, and it helps me really keep track of where I am in the pattern, and that's why I've added it to this. As I turn the page, or for you, scroll on, you'll notice that there is another chart of some sort. It's actually a like a diagram, and it's a diagram to show you how you will loop the loopies along to join them before it's time to tack down the single crochets. So this is just another visual once again, so that you know when you start to tack them down, the loops themselves are actually going to go towards the peak of whatever it may be. And so you'll have loops going one way or the other way as you tack them all down. As you follow along, you'll see that there is a video. You'll also see But the video will be right there. Here's a direct link to the Crochet Along Facebook group. And then there's information about winning prizes in the Crochet Along group if you're doing this crochet along during the time of the crochet along. For those of you who are catching this video after the crochet along is complete, don't worry, you're still going to enjoy making this poncho. You just don't get to participate in some of the giveaways and prizes. Although you still could join the Facebook Crochet Along group, because remember, I said it's the group that I use for all of my crochet alongs. And so any information pertaining to this crochet along will still be available in that Facebook group. So it's not too late. It's not too late at all. Now you know how to read this pattern and all the little changes I made to really help it be more accessible for you, and hopefully it will be more successful, help you be more successful, and we can get started. Those of you who have not watched my videos before, just so that you know, these crochet alongs are really taught in video format as if you are taking a class with me. So I do a lot of talking, I do a lot of explanation during these videos, so that way you can better understand why I decided to design something the way I did, or why you do a stitch any particular way. I really use these crochet alongs as a teaching tool, so I'm really excited to teach you, and I'm ready to jump in. Here's what I'm going to do. Now that I have my pattern, I will pull out the actual chart we're going to use, and then we will get started by working through that chart. Before you jump into making the actual poncho, I would like you to do a gauge swatch. Now, if you want to learn this stitch pattern first before you use your Red Heart Unforgettable yarn, I totally understand, and I'm going to do the same. So today I will be using Red Heart soft yarn and a larger hook, so that way it's easier for you to see on video what it is I'm doing with these stitches. If you want to follow along with me using some scrap yarn and a hook just to learn the stitch pattern first, I totally encourage you to do that. And then you'll be ready to go ahead and pick up your working yarn and the hook you plan on using for your poncho and do a gauge swatch for that. Remember, your gauge swatch must be with the yarn and the hook you plan on using to make the actual poncho, because you want to make sure that that yarn and that hook, as you make the poncho, are going to yield the correct size. That's the big thing with gauge. So as we jump in down here, I'm using Red Heart soft yarn, and I'm using a 6mm crochet hook, because look at that, you can see those really plain as day right here on the video. We're going to begin by doing a slip knot, and if you need a refresher on how to do a slip knot, please go ahead and click on that link right there. You can find all the videos for the beginner basics right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Once we get a slip knot, place that knot on your hook, and remember, this loop on your hook does not count as a stitch ever. And we will go ahead and begin by chaining 25 chains. And the reason I got 25 is because I counted the number of chains right here at the bottom of the chart, including my one turning chain. But I also know that my stitch multiple for this needs to be 12 plus 1. And if I'm going to do 2 repeats, that would be 24 plus 1 stitch is 25. So let's chain 25. Hold the yarn in your hook, swivel around your yarn just like so, and come up. That's 1. Remember, as you create your stitches, to move your hook down so that way the loop is actually the same size as the crochet hook, so that they don't accidentally get too tight. We're going to get 25 chains on here and then move on to the next row. I have my 25 chains, and these 25 chains are a direct representation of these little circles you see at the bottom of my chart, plus that one little chain stitch right out there. As I begin to read my chart backwards, I know that this number 1 out here is a quick sign for me to say, hey, start reading my chart from out here where my number is, and it lets me know that that is my row number 1. As I look at my symbols, I can see that I have 2 symbols going into 1 stitch right here. And so those 2 symbols, it's one of those is right there, one of those is right there, are going into the second chain from hook. Well, this is a single crochet, so I can see directly from the chart that I'm doing 2 single crochets into the second chain from hook. So I'll go ahead, come back over here, never count the loop on your hook. So there's 1, here's the second chain from hook. I'll go into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, go into that same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, and I've completed 2 single crochets. As I look back over here at the chart, I move on to the next symbol, and I can see it's also a single crochet, and it's only one of them is in that next chain. Looks like it's the same thing for the next one and the same thing for the next one. So I'm going to do a single crochet in the next 3 chains. So I move over here to the next chain, I do a single crochet, do a single crochet in the next one, and a single crochet in the next one. Refer back over here to my chart and I can say, okay, look, this is a new symbol. Those look like they're 2 single crochets, but look, they come together at one point. And they are both working into 2 chains. So let's take a look at my symbol key and see if there's a symbol for that. And as I look over here, I can see, oh, there's a single crochet 2 together, and it's that symbol. It kind of looks like an A, and that's what that is. So let's do our single crochet 2 together. If you don't know what a single crochet 2 together is, this is where you could go back to the stitch, the special stitches portion of the pattern and actually read through how to complete it, or go ahead and just watch me in the video. What we're going to do is we will go ahead, take our hook and place it into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Take our hook, place it in the next chain over, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now I have a loop coming out of one chain and another chain. As I look at the chart, I have a loop coming out of one chain and the other chain, but those 2 stitches become one. See how that symbol comes up and it's just one point, which means I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops. So I've just completed my single crochet 2 together. As I follow my chart, it looks like I have to do another one of those in the next 2 chains. So let's do that once again. Going into the next chain, I go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, move over to the next chain, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops on my hook. Following along on the chart, I can see, okay, I've just worked the valley here, so those were my decreases. I'm going to do a single crochet, a single crochet, a single crochet in the next 3 chains, and then I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the next one, and that's going to be the peak. So here we go. Let's do a single crochet in one, a single crochet in the next one, and a single crochet in the next one. I'm at the peak, so I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the next. So there's 1, 2, and I'm going to do that one more time. If you look at the chart, you'll see that we have 2 single crochets in the next one also. 1 and 2. Then as I follow along in the chart, I do 3 single crochets in the next 3 chains. So there's 1, 2, 3, and I need to do a decrease. So I'm going to do my single crochet 2 together. So I go into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. I'm going to do that one more time. Go into the next chain over, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next chain over, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. Just completed my valley, so I do a single crochet in the next 3 chains. So there's 1, 2, 3, and in the last chain here, as I look on my chart, the last chain, look, I have to do another increase because I did my decrease and I have to come up to the peak again, so I have to do another increase. So I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this last chain. So there's 1 and there's 2. As I set this down, as it wants to turn around on me a little bit, you'll see that I'm starting to get my peak and my valley, my peak and my valley and my peak. And those are created by doing the increase, the 2 decreases, the 2 increases, the 2 decreases, and an increase. Even though I've done these decreases, because I've coupled them with an increase that negates the decrease I completed, I still have the same stitch count at the end of the row. Now I'm at the end of the row. let's set this down just as it was be viewing here on the chart. So it'd be something like this, right? And I'm here at the end and I can see row 2, there's my number outside. So I will read row 2 coming back. And remember, row 2 for me means I will have to do a chain 10 right there in that peak. So I'm going to remember to do that. So I like to do my chains and then turn. You can turn and do your chains. It's totally up to you. So I will do my chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And that is going to count as a stitch. And the reason I know that is because I can just peep up at the next row and see that there's actual stitches worked into that chain. So I know that that's going to count as a stitch. And I will do a double crochet into the same stitch right there after the turn. So I yarn over my hook, working into that stitch right there. It's the last stitch I completed from the previous row. I will work my double crochet. Now I have a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So yarn over my hook, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. And I will do that in the next stitch and the next stitch. And now I'm down here to my valley and it's time for me to do this symbol. What does this symbol mean? It looks like 2 double crochets, but look, it only has 1 little top hat here at the top, meaning these 2 stitches are going to become 1. So it's a decrease. So it's a double crochet 2 together. Once again, you can take a look at the written instructions to find out how to work a double crochet 2 together, or continue watching right here in the video. What you will do is yarn over your hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over your hook, draw through 2 and stop. Yarn over your hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over your hook, draw through 2 and stop. We now have 2 partially completed double crochets worked into those 2 stitches, but we want them to become 1 stitch. So we yarn over our hook and we draw through all 3 loops on our hook. And because we have 1 V right there left at the end, we've created 1 stitch out of 2. We need to do that double crochet 2 together once again. So I yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over my hook, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, draw through all 3 loops on my hook. So now I've completed the valley decrease right there. I'm going to do a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So I will do the double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and now I must do an increase. So I yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, complete a double crochet, and then yarn over my hook, in the same stitch, do a double crochet again. Now I'm right here and I have that number 10, and that number 10, if I look in the stitch key, means chain 10. And the fact that it's that pink color it just means that that's the one I'm listening to. The reason is, you guys, as you're coming along here, as we finish that decrease, it could really easily look like that chain 10 is meant to be for this row, but it's not. The orange chain 10 is for the row 3. The purple or the pink chain 10 is for row 2. That's the one I want to pay attention to, which is why I colored it. So it's literally as easy as chaining 10 right here in your work. Just chain 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then carry on. So we will do our 2 double crochets into the next stitch. Those chain 10s are just going to hang out there. We'll do our double crochet, and we'll do 1 more double crochet because this is our increase, remember? And these chain 10s are just going to hang out. These are what are going to get braided together when everything is complete. So I've just completed this chain 10 right there, and I'll finish up the row following the instructions. So I will do a double crochet in the next 3 next 3 stitches. There's 2, here's 3, And now I need to do my decrease because I'm in the valley. So I'm going to do my double crochet 2 together. Yarn over my hook, go into the stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, go into the stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over my hook, draw through 2. Yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. Do that again. Yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over my hook, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over my hook, draw up a loop, yarn over my hook, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, draw through all 3 loops. Finish up by double crocheting into the next 3 stitches. So it's 1, 2, 3, whoops, there's my 3. And then I need to remember to finish off by doing my increase in the very last stitch here. So in my last stitch, I will do my 2 double crochets right here at the very end. And that's represented right there. And it's time for me to move on to row 3. So as I set this down, you can see this is where I started. That's my original chain 3s. I worked down here to my decrease, went up to my increase, and I have my chain 10s, a decrease, up to my increase, and I'm ready for row 3. And on row 3, as I come back, I'm going to have chain 10s at this point, come up, and then have chain 10s at this point. Let's get started. Pick up my work. I will go ahead and I will do my chain 1 and turn. You can turn and chain 1, it doesn't matter. I will do my increase here at the start, so I will put 2 single crochets into this first stitch. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3. Now I have to do my single crochet 2 together. If you remember how to do that, you go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. Now I have my chain 10, so I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I come over here and I do my double or my single crochet 2 together again. Make sure you do not work into that same stitch you already worked into. You move over to the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So you worked those over the decreases. You do a single crochet in the next 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now it's time to do an increase right here. So we will do our single crochet increase, which is just 2 single crochets. 2 single crochets. You will completely ignore those chain 10s, okay? You completely ignore them. Working all the way over here into the next stitch, you will do your increase again, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? The increases are side by side. So I just did 2 single crochets, do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and it's time to do my decrease. So I go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 3, and I'm right here, so I have to do my chain 10. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I come back over here, make sure I'm not working into the same stitch, and I work my double or my single crochet 2 together. Keep wanting to call it double crochet, and then do my 3 single crochets, 2, 3, and then I'll put my 2 single crochets into the 3rd chain of this turning chain because it counts as a stitch. Remember, I told you it counts as a stitch, and I know that because I can see right here in the chart these 2 single crochets get worked into the 3rd chain of that turning chain. It's time for me to go on and move to row 4, which is a repeat of row 2. So I will be repeating row 2 as I follow along this way, and I'll be doing a chain 10 at the peak again. So let's take a look at where I am. I am right here, and we now have a chain 10 going right here, one right here, and one right here. Pick up my work, and I will start off with my chain 3 And I will turn my work and put my first double crochet right here at the first stitch. Do a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then do my double crochet 2 together. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through all 3. I'm going to completely skip that chain 10, okay? And I'm just holding it to the back, and I'm going to move all the way over here, and I will talk to you about that here in just a second. But I will complete my double crochet 2 together over here on this side. And then I'm completely ignoring that chain 10. I will do my double crochets in the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3. It's time to do my increase. So I will do 1, 2 double crochets, chain 10, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then do my 2 increases on the opposite side. There's 1 and 2. Do 3 double crochets. And then I'll do my double crochet 2 together. So I yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through all 3, completely ignore that chain 10, just moving it out of the way, coming over here to this side and doing the same decrease. All right. And then I do my 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, 3. And then I do my increase here at the very end by putting 2 double crochets in the last stitch. And let's set down my work. So I'll set down my work just as it is viewed as I just finished row 4, okay? And you can see right here, oh look, there are my chain 10s that I worked on my even rows. And if I flip it over, there's my chain 10 I worked on my odd rows. Now right here at the start, they might be on either side just like mine are. You'll find that one side has all the loops, the other side has all the loops going the opposite direction. When the full panel is complete, you can just push all the loops to one side, push them all over to the right side. So that way all the loops are on one side. But as you're working your panel and you're just going along, don't fret it. It's really easy just to push the loops to the opposite side when it's all complete, but it's really easy to work those stitches with the loops, the chain 10s just pushed out of the way as you do your decreases or your increases. So just ignore them at this point in your work. Once you get to the end of row 4, it's time to move on to row 5, which is again just a repeat of row 3. So we chain 1, do 2 single crochets right here at the very first stitch of the row, do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and we will do our decrease. So our decrease is a single crochet 2 together, so there's 1 pull up loop, 2 pull up loop, yarn over, draw through 3. And remember, I'm on a row 3, which means it's the orange chain 10, so I will chain 10 on this row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come down here. Let's do our single crochet 2 together. And there we have it. Do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and then we got to do our increase. So we're going to put 2 single crochets into this 1 stitch. Completely ignore that chain 10. See what I mean about having it pull out of the way behind you? It's just easy. Come all the way to the other side and do our 2 single crochets into that stitch. Do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, Let's see, how many did I just do? I'm sorry, I got distracted. Let's see, I did my increase, so 1, 2, 3, and it's time to do my decrease. So single crochet 2 together, so I pull up a loop, draw through 3, chain 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come over here, do my single crochet 2 together again, because it's the valley. You have to do the decreases in the valley. Work a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then do your final increase into the 3rd chain of the turning chain. So we're going to either go into the actual chain or the space. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go into the chain. So there's 1 and 2. As I set this down, just completed that row. So now I have 2 loops there. If I were to flip it over, I have my 2 loops there. So viewing it from this side, these 2 loops are the orange loops. You see what I'm saying? If I flip it over this way, this one represents this. Now, as I mentioned, when it's all complete, all you could do is, because we know row 2 is the right side row, so row 2 is the one where they're on the peaks, I would take my wrong side row stitches, the chains, and just pop them over just like that. You see that? So here it is. I'm just pushing it over to this side. See how easy that is? Told you didn't have to worry about it. It's that easy. Once you have mastered this stitch pattern, which I know you have now with your gauge swatch, you want to measure this gauge swatch. Now, this gauge swatch is exactly 2 stitch pattern repeats. So with your yarn and your hook you're going to use for your poncho, this should measure about 6 inches. Once you get that 6 inches and you start your poncho, take the time to, maybe you get through a couple rows, just set it on top of the other panel you've already completed, just to make sure they're both the same width. That's what we want ultimately. They both need to be the same width. And why not just give it a test before you get too far into the second rectangle, the second panel, and find out that it's either too big or too small. Just put it right on top of the other panel and see and make sure they're the same width. And then ultimately, you also want them to be the same length. The instructions state exactly how long you need this panel to be, but if you want to just work it and eyeball it and just keep measuring it back and forth with the panel you've already completed, you can do that too, because we want both of these panels to be the same size. Once the panel measures the measurement you need it to be, you want to make sure you end with a row 3. So you finished a row 3, you're ready to start a row 2, okay? For row 2, let's go ahead and pull in our written instructions so that we can follow along together and see how we do this next bit. I just completed row 5 on the chart, which is actually a row 3, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and see how we would work up the next row, which would be a row 2, but on the actual pattern, you'll see here that it says next row right side. We start off by doing a chain 3, so 1, 2, 3. Counts as a double crochet, just like it has all along. We will double crochet into the first stitch, double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So we'll do our double crochet 2 together, which is just like what we've been doing all along. And we're going to do that twice. So just like before, I'm going to move that chain 10 out of the way, and I'll complete the next double crochet 2 together. What you'll notice here is that we are ignoring that chain 10, which is perfect. I could pop that over here because now it's on the right side. I'll do a double crochet in the next 3 stitches, 2 and 3. And then I will put 2 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So here's 1 double, here's 2 double. And then if I put 2 doubles in the next stitch, what makes this row different from a row 2 is that I am not doing a chain 10, okay? So I'm not doing a chain 10. I'm just doing my increase at the peak, just like normal, without my chain 10s. I do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches down, let's see, what did I did 3, and now I'll do my double crochet 2 together, just like I did before. Completely ignore that chain 10. Okay, I'm going to move it out of the way, come over here, do my double crochet 2 together. Oop, I just completed that double, huh? Let me start that again. Double crochet 2 together. There we go. And then finish with my double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 2, 3, and then a double crochet here at the end, 2 of them. So what makes this row different from the normal row 2 is that I don't have any chain 10 loops, okay? I didn't do any chain 10 loops. And that's important because we're finishing off our actual panel, so we don't want our chain 10 loops there. You'll see that the next part of the instructions, it says to go ahead and turn our work, but do not fasten off. So we're not going to fasten off our stitches. Should make sure all the loops show on the right side. Okay, I've done that. See, my loops are all on the right side. Can you see that? Then it says just push through the fabric if you need to get them to the right side. We've already done that. It says braid the first column of loops by pulling up the loop through the next, working the top piece, blah, blah, blah. When we braid our loops, we want them to go in the direction pointing towards the peaks. So as I'm looking down here at my swatch, I can see these loops here, and I want them to go to this direction towards that peak. I want these loops here to go to this direction towards this peak. I want these loops to go to that direction towards that peak. So if that's the case, let's see how we do this. I put one through the other and I pull it up like so. If this one's supposed to go the opposite direction, one through the other, like so. And this one's supposed to go this way. Let's see here. One through the other and pull it up like so. You see how that works? Okay. So now that they're all braided, so if this were my full panel, I'd have a full list of braids, and I'll show you a sample here in just a minute, but I would be ready to move on to the final row. So on the final row here, because my yarn is still attached, remember, I go ahead and I chain 1. I single crochet in each of the next 11 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whoops, 10, and there's 11. And in this next stitch, I'm actually going to tack down this loop. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I will grab, let's see if I can do this, grab the braided loop. I'm just going to place it on my hook. So I'm going to place it on my hook without going through the chains or anything. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to draw through all of those loops on my hook. So if you noticed, I'm going to undo this, okay? I have the starting loop I had, the loop I pulled up through the stitch, my 10 chains, yarn over, and draw through all of those, and that tacks down that one loop. Then I would go ahead, continue on in the instructions. It says repeat from star, so I would go ahead and single crochet in the next 11 stitches. And if this were larger, I would single crochet over till I got to the next peak, and then tack down the chain 10s once again. So I'm going to get here to the end just to finish this one row, so that way you can see. You'll notice I'm not doing any increases, I'm not doing any decreases, and I do want to make sure I finish up by working that stitch into that third chain of the turning chain. And then I can fasten off my work. Go ahead and do that, and I always leave 4 to 6 inches, you guys know that. So that's the end of that row. Okay, so here we are. You can see that's tacked down. If this were longer, it'd be a full load of stitches. Now it says in the instructions to go ahead and turn your work 180 degrees, and then you're going to essentially do the same thing at this end. But you'll also notice there's a section here that says designer note, and this is what I brought up at the start of the video. If you want to turn your work here and go ahead, join your yarn on the foundation chain and work the number of stitches and tack down your loops just like so, you absolutely can do that. But if you want to change that up and make it so that your loops are actually not attached to this next row, but maybe they overlap when we seam that edge to the edge of the first panel, and then maybe we decide to put like a button there for decoration, you could totally do that. Okay, so that's an option if you want to do that. I'm going to leave that up to you, and I'm going to show you what that'll look like here in just a second. But you can see here that all we would do on this edge is follow along your instructions where it says join with the slip stitch, chain 1, single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So you would be able to count, and essentially you're working up, and then you'll do your single crochet tack down right there at that peak, work down up to the peak, tack it down, and then work down. You can see how that works. Now, as I set this aside, let's take a look at what my little working sample looks like here. As you know, I'm making one in cappuccino along with all of you. And so this is what the little sample looks like. And I say little, I use that term loosely, when all of the pieces are just kind of just hanging out there. And you'll just take the time, and it's really just quite relaxing just to braid them all through each other, and you just stick a loop through a loop through a loop, sort of like a Jacob's ladder, and you pull it up. And what I really love about this is not only the texture, but I love that it accentuates that chevron look, okay? It really gives these really bold lines that contrast to the lines that are going in the opposite direction. It also is a really good complementary fabric to the raised chevron panel, which is why I chose 2 chevron stitches, one that gives the illusion of chevrons with the post stitches, and another that does an actual chevron but has a lot of little action going on with these loopies. All right, so you're gonna have a lot of fun with this. Just make sure that as you're working along, once again, you don't accidentally get too tight. Maybe as you're working along, you get real comfortable and start to get a little bit tighter. You know, just keep testing it right next to the section 1 panel that you've already completed, just to make sure they're both the same. And when this one is complete, you'll be ready for the seaming portion of the poncho, which is what we're going to do next week. And it's not hard at all. We will do seaming and edging next week, which will be a lot of fun. But before I show you any more information about that, I want to show you the poncho that you have seen in the images for this crochet along. As I set this poncho down, I want to point out where the join is here. Look at this. Can you see here? So over here is my raised chevron fabric. Okay, right here is my raised chevron fabric. And right here is the join where the loopy chevron was actually attached. And you can see I have loops that are just hanging out here. And the reason these loops are just hanging out here is because I actually want to add buttons to this side of the fabric and have those loops go through the buttons. I thought it would be a really cool decorative detail to do that. So when I had my contractor, Christy, make this poncho, I asked her to please not tack down this edge so that way I could add buttons. And I wanted to be able to show you what it would look like before the buttons were added. So that's why I haven't added them yet. But this is what I mean about the designer note of adding buttons. If you didn't want to do another edge over there, you just have that final loopy edge, and you can use that to tack down. Pretty cool, right? So cool. Once you finish your loopy chevron stitch pattern panel, you should have both panels complete, and you'll be able to move on to the seaming and the edging portion. It's really important you get those complete, and I know you can do it in the time frame that we have. Just break it up, you guys. Just like we talked about last time, if you need to break it up to maybe do 5 inches a day, 3 inches a day, or however it works best with your schedule, I know you can get it. At the same time, if you do not get the 2 panels complete by the time next week rolls around, don't stress out. It's totally okay because these videos are available forever. The crochet along is going to be there forever, and we are here to help you. I am here to help you succeed, I promise. So don't fret, don't be frazzled, don't think that you're never going to finish, because I know you can, and I am here to help you, as well as all of the other contractors that helped and the other crochet alongers. They're all here to help you out, okay? As you're working along on your project, I am so enjoying seeing your panels as they're complete. So make sure as you share your panel on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or wherever it may be, use the hashtag MarleyBirdCAL, so that way I can find a picture of your poncho, because I want to see the work as you're going along. It's going to be a lot of fun for me to sit there and show Red Heart all your ponchos that are getting made, show my family, and then just be, just warms my heart. It warms my heart to see all of you succeed so well. I hope you really like this loopy chevron stitch. I think it's a lot of fun to make, and once you kind of get a couple of repeats in, you'll find a rhythm with it. It's really addictive. It's like, oh my gosh, what else can I make with this? And you'll be wanting to make all sorts of stuff. I hope you're enjoying the Marley Bird Crochet Along, and you will come back here for more videos on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. As my kids say, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you're up to date whenever there's a new video released. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns, and you're watching the Marley Bird Poncho Crochet Along. I'll see you later. Bye guys. Looking for more Marley Bird? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Click right down there and you will find more videos just like this teaching you how to knit or crochet, all brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. Go ahead, click away. Don't be shy. Don't forget to smash that like button.